All right, guys, if you clicked on this title, it's because it's called Why You Should Never Do Xanax. And give me a second and hear me out. You might be thinking, I don't need to be told not to do Xanax. I know not to do Xanax. But some of y'all might be thinking about trying them. Some of y'all might be trying them. And I just want to let you know some stories from my past that might convince you otherwise. I used to know this guy, lived with his parents, lived in his shed, and had a stepdad that hated him. His mom defended him no matter what. He would get paid. He would buy stuff, you know, weed, Xanax, and by the end of the night, he was out of everything because he would throughout the day, throughout the night, he would trade his Xanax for less than what he bought them for to get more weed, and then he would trade his weed to get more Xanax for double what he bought them for, and he just winded up screwing himself, uh, you know, all the time. People would take advantage of him, and no matter how much you tried to help him, he would always do this. And back in the day, he used to go and get, green for me, and he ripped me off. So even though I was friends with this dude, he was my brother's friend. He was older. I took advantage of it, once or twice because he ripped me off. It was payback. And no matter what, he would just end up doing it. Somebody would end up having all this stuff. And at least if I had it or we had it, we would end up sharing it back with them. So in a way, it was helping them, but in a way, it wasn't. It was terrible. Anyways, my other friend had moved in with him, and I was hanging out one time, just smoking with the dude. And my friend walked in late night, and he was all on Xanax, and he starts asking the dude where a crack rock is. And I'm like, what the hell? I guess they had been trying to sell crack, but they were never good at it because my one friend that lived with him, he's in prison right now because he always tries to sell stuff and then he gets arrested because he does the stuff too and he's all high, and it's a shame, and I hope the best for him and I hope he gets out of that. But this night he perceives or whatever to look for this crack rock. He finds it, he sticks it in a weed metal bowl, and he hits it, and he falls. The whole time I'm looking at him in amazement, shock. I'm like, come on, we would never do, like, what? Come on, we would never do this. We grew up watching crackheads get arrested. Like, I would literally sit down the street, and we would see undercovers sell the crackheads. They would walk up, they would get fake crack, and then 20 feet, 50 feet down the road, the cops would swarm them and arrest them. I mean, come on, we always made fun of these people and mess with them. We were little teenager punk, kids. We didn't know any better. But here he is smoking crack for what I was told the first time ever. He hits it, falls backwards, goes to sleep, wakes up the next morning, does not remember it, gets told from my friend he was living with that he tried crack, and he was pissed because he couldn't remember it, and he felt like he was cheated. Like I would never try crack, and I tried it, and now I don't even know how it feels. So he tried it again, I guess, and that's what started his crack addiction, unfortunately. So yeah, don't do Xanax because you might end up with a crack addiction or getting ripped off, or you might end up like me. There was one time I was staying at my aunt's house. And she hated me because I would eat her cheese. I'd be in the kitchen eating her cheese, and that's not the worst part. I wouldn't put it back right, and it would dry out, and it was like a freaking straight lunatic, and she hated that. But this night, I stayed up all night because a friend of the family was staying there, and she was getting prescribed Xanax. And when I first tried Xanax, I thought, hey, I might, I might be like, I might need to take these because I feel normal. I didn't feel an effect off them at first. The first time I ever did them, I felt normal, like I could talk and all this stuff. But this night, I had took too many or whatever, and I stayed up all night and decided to steal my aunt's car and go to McDonald's. Even though, like, anytime I ever took Xanax, especially like that, my stomach would be killing me. I would try to eat concoctions, random mixes of stuff, and yeah, I don't even know why I didn't even like the McDonald's. But as I'm pulling back into her driveway, she's there looking at me, and I'm pulling crooked and stuff because I'm like, well, oh crap, oh crap. She was pissed, understandably pissed, and yeah, I ran away to some other friend's house that I was staying at the time. I would be gone for a few days at a time until the heat cooled down and my grandma cooled down a little bit, and there was another time that I had stole my grandma's car and it had died out on me and my friend, the one that tried the crack and passed out. This was before this, I believe, and we were going over this hill and it died out. It would die out all the time, and we pulled over and we were trying to get it started again, and a cop pulled up. None of us had a license. Cop pulled up and he's like, "Can I help you guys with anything?" My friend said, "Let me talk." He goes, "No, officer, I'm waiting on my brother. He's coming right now. We're good." Cop leaves. We walk all the way home. This is like first thing in the morning. I get home. Where's the car? Because everybody's up, wondering where the car is. Where's the car? My uncle's like, how do you know somebody didn't take the car? Like, where the hell is the car? I'm gonna call the cops. Like, he came at me with so much aggression that I was like, I don't know. Cops were called. They ended up towing the car. My grandma had to pay money to get it out of impound. It was terrible. I mean, years later, I'm telling the story in front of my uncle and his wife, who was there at the time, and I'm like, I felt like shit, you know. And she's like, "Donald, I believed you," because she actually believed me, and that was like terrible, you know. And there was this other time that I scrapped some stuff out of the yard, including an old barbecue that we were not using. We weren't using this barbecue to buy some Xanax because somebody had them for cheap, and I was trying to double them up, and I doubled them up, and I was trying to go back and get more, and the dude's like, "Oh, meet me here, 30 minutes away." So I had to pay my friend to go take me there, and when we get there, he's like, "Call me when you get on the road." Well, or tell me when you're about to turn or whatever. I call him, and then he goes, "When you turn, stop." Well, I was already on the road, and so I just like told my friend, let's turn around," and as we're coming back down from where we came from, cop was pulling on the road. Almost knocked my headphones out, but I took a right. I said, "Let's take a right. Let's get out of here." Another cop right here. So in my head, I'm like, this is a setup, straight up setup. Anyways, during this time, my family had called me and they're like, "Grandma wants to know what happened to the barbecue." I'm like, "Oh, I scrapped it." Like, you guys knew that. They, whatever. And she was pissed. And so, really pissed. And I'm like, I felt like crap. And my plan to double up and stuff like that, I thought I was the next, what, George Lucas or whatever. But anyways, didn't work. So I was like, all right, let's do Xanax all night, to my one friend that lived in the shed. And we stayed up all night. And then I said, let's go scrapping first thing in the morning. There was a daycare that lived by his house. We asked the daycare first thing in the morning if we could use their big trash can, the green one. And they said yes. And we took it. And there was this abandoned building that had scrap metal all around it and stuff. And so we were getting the stuff outside of the building, not in the building. We weren't in the building. And there was a sign on the side of the road. Well, the whole time we were getting watched too, and they had called the cops. Well, I pick up this sign and I'm walking on the side of the road. It's just a street like sign, like a pole with no sign on it, and it's all bent up and rusted. And I'm walking like Moses, and a cop pulls up and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like explaining it to him. My friend comes out from nowhere. He gave himself up, and then they're trying to like hold up the screwdriver that was in the building to try to frame us, and we're like, "That's not ours," and blah blah blah. And then I had an adjustable wrench and something else on me, and they arrested us for breaking and entering and burglary, possession of burglary tools. That's what I got because I had the tools, right? But that was a total lie. 2 felonies. I get arrested. I go to jail, right? Oh no, we go to the holding cell at the police station. My friend's sleeping on the investigation table, the interview table. Finally, after hours, the cop comes in and he's trying to ask us. He's recording it and he's trying to ask us what happened. And I just wasn't talking to him. And I was like, "You try to frame us." So that's all I said. You try to frame us. So he couldn't use that recording, but that's what I think. And he was trying to frame us. But anyways, we go to jail, and as I'm walking out, I still have a tool in my pocket. I'm like, hey, you guys might want this. And they're like, good thing you gave that to us, because if we would have got to the jail, that would have been an extra felony. Were they trying to make that happen or what? I don't know. We get there, we hadn't slept. It's going on 24 hours or more. I hadn't slept, and they got this Kool-Aid that had fumes on the top of it. I mean, it like rainbow colored, like from gas or like soap. And I thought it was the best thing ever. And people were looking at me like I'm crazy. And I gave some people my food because I couldn't eat. Xanax always messed my stomach up. And the next day, the nenext day I'd feel terrible, and everything felt like toxic, especially soda. But yeah, we're in jail. The next morning we get our first appearance. We see my friend's mom and his friend in there, and I'm like, hey, right in front of the judge like a freaking idiot. We get bond, and that night he gets bonded out, and he's running out the cell because they keep you in a big holding cell with a bunch of different cells, and you could hear his flip flops like he's running out like Fred Flintstone. And I'm like, hey, tell my family, because I don't know if they know. Well, the next day I got bailed out from my sister. She takes me home, and she's like, what the hell were you doing? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I told her the story and everything. And my friend that I got arrested with said I was on a mission to get arrested, and he wasn't going to let me do it by myself. And I believe him. I mean, my family were mad at me. I was feeling terrible, and I had just turned 18 a couple of weeks ago. There was a guy in the cell, in jail, one of the workers there, like, what are you doing in here? He asked me, what are you doing in here? I said, nobody wants to listen to the guy on the inside, because I wasn't doing what they charged me with. And he's like, I feel that. And I get out, and I'm talking about this movie on the porch with my sister and somebody else, Bad Lieutenant. And if I watched a movie over and over, I could recite it word for word. So I was reciting this movie word for word, and she's like, are you on drugs? And she accused me of like smoking crack or whatever. And she, out of everybody, should know that I would never do that. And like, her and my brother would know I would never do that, like, ever. And so that got to me, and I went to the living room, and I had a bunch of friends in the back with my brother. Like, we used to have a shed that we would smoke in and chill, and they were all back there. Well, my brother comes in, and he sees me like crying, and he's like, what's up? And I'm like, well, she just said this. And he's like, well, fuck that, come back here and smoke, and let's chill. And so I did. A couple weeks go by, or a week goes by, I get a letter in the mail saying that they had dropped the case. And then I see the cop that tried to like frame us, and the investigator at a police station. He signals me to come to his car when I'm hanging out with all my friends. I don't know if he was trying to make me look like a rat or what by dropping the case, or it's because he was trying to frame me and he had nothing on me. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. It's all, water under the fridge, as Ricky would say. But he said, I had that case dropped for you. And I'm thinking in my head, you fool of shit. But I'm like, okay, all right, I'm not trying to fight with y'all. I'm not trying to be your enemy. Like, okay, thanks. And the case was dropped. But I still had to go through all that. And I had a mugshot, and it just disappeared after like more than a decade. I just went to go look for it because I was going to put it as the thumbnail, and it was gone. But it was there for the longest time. So if I didn't, my headphones went out. But if I didn't want to be honest and tell you guys about my life, I could have just kept this silent, and it would never have came out. But I can't run away from my past. I can't act like I'm somebody that I'm not, and like these things didn't happen. I wish I grew up better. I wish I grew up more into politics and stuff like this, but it just didn't happen that way, and I'm not that person anymore. And so it is what it is. But that is why you should never do Xanax. I'll tell you one last story about Xanax, because I could probably go on when it comes to my friends. Like my one friend that lived in the shed, he punched a cop car. No cop was in it, but he punched a light. He walked in front of a truck. he was the type that would always get in fights at parties. He would always think everybody's out to get him, and we would be like, no, nobody's trying to fight you. And he's like, you hate me, just say you hate me. And he would be like, punch me in the face. You want to punch me in the face? He would just keep going and keep going, and he thought everybody was against them. And there was a time where I was trying to sit on a box fan and it kept falling over. Um, Whatever. Times, little moments like that. My friend's mom did Xanax, and she would slur her words, and she did it for over a decade, and she got off them. So there's hope. You can get off them, even though it's one of the hardest things to get off of. And this isn't medical advice, but from my understanding, you could literally die from withdrawing off them. That and alcohol is like the two worst things, from what I heard. But she got off of them. So I never did them like that. I just did them here and there for fun, and fortunately, they would make me sick, and I hate anything that makes me feel sick or makes like, what's the point? So, but I'll tell you this last story, and it's the worst. I mean, it's one of the worst, other than stealing my grandma's car. There was a time where I did Xanax all night, or whatever, a few Xanax and 8 concoctions, and felt my stomach was all torn up. And she decided to take me out to eat that day for some reason, just out of the blue, and I couldn't eat anything, and I felt terrible. Like just going out to eat with my grandma, and coming down off of Xanax from the night before, and just my stomach being messed up and torn up. And I mean, I couldn't even sit there. That could have been such a better memory, but instead I got to remember, oh, you couldn't eat anything because you were all on Xanax the night before. So I knew a lot of people that were a lot worse off on them, and it led to a lot worse. My friend, he's in prison. The other friend that lived in the shed, last time I seen him, he's smoking meth and still running around, and his mom finally kicked him out, and he's like middle-aged almost, and it's sad. So I mean, stay away from these things. It's not, sometimes it's cool, it seems cool to do them and stuff like that, but it's not where it's at. It's not worth it. Like I said, that's not me anymore, but I can't run away from it. And I thought if I could help people, by being honest and telling my truth, and also so you guys know a little bit about me, and that I don't claim to be perfect, and I do have a bit of a past, and I've always felt like I don't deserve certain things, and I don't deserve to be happy because of some of the choices I made, but I don't believe that anymore, and I'm trying my best to overcome that mindset I put on myself, or life put on me through my upbringing, and like I said, the choices I made. I wish I would have made better choices, but I didn't, and I can't. My grandma told me one thing when I was getting mad about my parents being on drugs, and how they didn't buy me stuff, and I was working at 13 to buy my own clothes and stuff like that. I've been working since I was 13 under the table, and I was young, and I was telling my grandma that, like, this ain't fair because of this. Other kids have multiple choices, like their parents buy them clothes, a car, whatever. I was just rambling on, and she's like, Donald, you can't use that as an excuse your whole life. And she's 100% right. And I have used that as an excuse. I really have. But it affected me. I can't use it as an excuse, but I can't act like it never happened. I can't run away from my upbringing and those bad choices I made. All I could do is try to be the best person I could be, and use the information I have on hand to make the best choices. And that's it. I'm done rambling to you guys, but like I said, I hope it helps somebody. And at the very least, you guys know a little more about me, and look forward to more of these stories if people want to hear them. If not, I won't talk about myself. Trust me, it's easier for me to just be quiet than to open up and be vulnerable and have all my freaking past out there. But then I wouldn't feel authentic. So anyways, end of video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, consider it. And as always, take care and stay safe. Thanks for watching.